Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to session 2 of stress management. And just know that if you don't have the opportunity to participate in person, we do record the sessions and then post them on YouTube so you can watch them at your convenience. Don't want to stress out because you're missing a session. Let me just share my screen here. So just an overview of what we've done so far, what we're going to be doing today, and what we will be looking forward to in the next 2 sessions. The first session really focused on understanding how the stress response works in our bodies, our minds, our energy, our emotions, all of those kinds of things. So by understanding better, we might be able to formulate some helpful responses when stress builds up. And this week, we're going to be looking at the upside of stress. And then in the last 2 sessions, we're actually going to be learning some practices that will help us dial down stress in the moment. So the first thing is to review. I know some of you had the opportunity to see this and to do, this was your homework between last week and this week, just taking a moment to observe those times when you feel that stress is building up. Maybe noticing what triggered the stress, noticing those sensations in your body that indicated to you that you were feeling stressed. And also noticing how that situation may have affected your thoughts, your emotions. And then finally paying attention to what your reaction was. And this is neither good nor bad, nor judgment involved. It's just a matter of getting familiar with the way that we operate when tension builds up so we can choose a different path. Today, we're going to look at a concept you may not be familiar with. I know stress has always been painted as the bad boy of health issues, but there are definitely some upsides to stress. And it's helpful also to think about how we talk about things affects how we think about things, and how we think about things in turn affects our behavior and our actions in response. So let's look at a couple of definitions. Number 1, we looked at the idea that stress was a total body response. That means body, mind, energy, all of those kinds of things to a real or imagined threat. So it didn't matter much if the threat was happening in real life. Oh, there go my dogs, they're going to be howling. If it was happening in the moment, in real time, or if it was something that was just in your mind. They're channeling their inner wolves, and there's nothing I can do about it. Girls, quiet. Another definition of stress we can look at is one that was promulgated by Hans Selye, who looked at not only the stress response, but the relaxation response. And he said that stress is any demand on the body for change. So we all know that change is not something we love, we embrace, particularly when those changes are forced on us by our circumstances. I'm thinking about all the changes perhaps that we've had to make in light of the current situation with COVID, all the ways we've had to retool our work lives, our home lives, our family lives. And I really believe that a lot of what we feel in the stress response is related to control or lack of control in that situation. So the more we control or have control over it, the less stress we feel. And conversely, the less control we have, the more stress we feel. So a question I have for you is, do you think there's any such thing as good stress? Well, there absolutely is. Think about all the things in your life that you would think of as positive. Taking a vacation, getting a promotion at work or a new job, getting married, maybe having a new baby, all of those things that happen to us in life. And they're considered positive things. But if you look at Selye's definition of stress as any demand on the body to change, this requires us to change. But I'd like to also talk about another definition of stress. Kelly McGonigal is a health psychologist and a lecturer at Stanford University. And I've gotten very interested in reading what she's put out there about the stress response and how we can actually make stress our friend. She's got a wonderful TED Talk, lasts about 20-25 minutes, on making stress your friend. And I really invite you to check it out because it's certainly worthwhile. And what she says is that stress is what arises when something you care about is at stake. So think about it. That makes really, really good sense. Just suppose you had to take an exam, that you were in a class and you had to take an exam. It would be a totally different response for you if you were needing that class to fulfill your requirements for a degree versus if you were just taking the class because it was interesting to you and it was fun. So you certainly wouldn't stress too much if you were taking the class for fun, but certainly if your degree depended on it, you would. So here's some other interesting things that Kelly came up with in her extensive research on the stress response and how we can make it our friend. In addition to the chemicals we know that are released during the stress response, things like adrenaline, epinephrine, and cortisol, there are two other less discussed hormones that are released by the body. One is DHEA, which helps to prime our brain for learning and trying new things. And certainly when we're under stress, we need to very often retool our habitual ways of doing things. And the other chemical is oxytocin. And oxytocin is known as the cuddle hormone. It's what released when a mother nurses her baby. And I love this picture of my grandson and my pug. They're certainly bonding and releasing a lot of oxytocin. Oxytocin primes us for bonding and making social connections. And we know we need those when we're feeling under stress, and we could use a little support. So it encourages us to reach out to other people so that we don't have to go it alone. The other interesting thing about the research in stress says that if we anticipate that stress is going to affect us adversely, we are more apt to have those responses, those negative responses to stress. So it's really important to begin to adjust our mindset around the experience of threat or stress so that we can see it not just as a threat, but as an opportunity, so that we can learn to make those changes that are helpful to us and our behavior, that we become more skillful at managing it. Here's another interesting fact about stress. Welcome to the Goldilocks zone. Not too little, not too much, just right. Optimal performance happens when we're under a moderate, controllable degree of stress. Too little, and we're bored. We don't have the get up and go to go and do what we need to do. Too much, and we begin to become physically and emotionally exhausted and begin to be affected by things like burnout and compassion fatigue. So keeping stress at an optimal level is important. And when you look at the physical body, we know that when we don't stress our bones by doing weight-bearing activity, our bones tend to deteriorate. So that's just one example from the physical body. So before I leave you today, I'm going to leave you with a homework assignment for next week when we're going to be looking at the first of 2 techniques to help manage stress. And this assignment is pretty much like the first week, to notice when you're feeling stressed, to notice what the trigger was for that situation. Notice how your body feels, those physical sensations. What about your thoughts and emotions? And going a little bit further, what was your reaction? Were you able to view that situation that caused you to feel stress as an opportunity and not just a threat? And lastly, what did you learn about yourself? So we'll gather next week, same time, same station. You can also catch it on YouTube. Have a great week, everybody, and take a deep breath. See you next week.